the worst VAR decision in the history of VAR in any game ever.
Could we not use VAR for good for a change instead of evil?
People are right, get Bernardo in and he comes in and he's an NPC.
Cal McGregor, again, has to find a way around it, but if teams are going to mark him in every game, it just looks like he points now. And
I'm up to the game by some guy that gets paid 600 quid a week.
That sort of spine that we're so used to over the last 4 or 5 years kind of needs dismantled at this point.
He's the worst manager they've ever had.
it was obviously Russell Martin
wasn't
wearing a shirt and tie, but there under it somebody says, Gio really should have learned how to do a Windsor knot. I'm like, what is going on here?
Was that the turning point? Did Celtic's season change against Motherwell after the disaster that was Braga? And yes, Russell, we're going to get to you. That's this week on 20 Minute Tims. I'm your host, Jamie, and I'm joined by Melly.
Yes.
And Stephen.
What's happening?
So this is what I wanted to discuss, whether or not the
Right.
season has turned a wee bit against Motherwell. The tide has turned with that last-minute winner against Motherwell. We were talking, Melly, in the group chat that we have, and I says, that's the season turned. I was in the Discord, joining the 20 Minute Tims community in the Discord, and I said, season's turned right there. I feel it. I felt like that. For many reasons, I felt like that could be the catalyst to move us all on. It's not going to happen by magic, but just to get us kicked off, I thought it was, and you were immediately going, not for me. Absolute killjoy.
I would love it to be the case, but with this Celtic team, I just don't see where this big run's going to come from. That was a brilliant victory. Myself and Stephen spoke before the game, and I want to be entertained today. I was entertained a lot. Yes. Entertained a lot. The game turned out to be brilliant. It was great entertainment. But from the performance, I didn't see a Celtic team that all of a sudden clicked. I did see a Celtic team that were out there fighting, battling, and wanted to win the game. I don't think this is a Celtic team that have down tools. I just believe they lack the quality needed to go on a run. And even though we got the victory in the end, I didn't see the puzzle start to come clear to me. Like, see if we just put him here and put him here, everything will fall into place now. It was still Celtic won the game because they were pushing for it towards the end, not by sheer quality.
So that's my point, Stephen. What I mean when I say is that the corner turned. I'm not trying to say that all of a sudden we're going to be amazing. Free scoring, never boring, Glasgow Celtic.
Right, yeah.
I don't think that's what we're going to be, but I think what that game showed was what Melly said, where if the team hopefully now can look and go, do you know what, we can actually get ourselves out of some really tricky situations if we work, if we try, if we push ourselves to the end. You know, things aren't always going to go Celtic's way. I think we can all accept this is not a vintage Celtic team, and it's probably not going to be a vintage Celtic season, but if we work harder than the opposition, no matter who the opposition are, we'll get the win. And it's going to have to be like that this season, and I hope that's what the team and the manager and even us fans take for it. If you're waiting for what Melly said, I'm calling Melly out again for the second week in a row. If you're waiting for this amazing Celtic team to show up and absolutely everything's amazing, it's not going to happen.
No,
but what if you're wanting this season as Celtic to, dig out a win against a pretty decent Motherwell team in a game that would have just been so... The way things have gone for Celtic, it would have been so easy, Stephen, just to accept that draw and roll on. And do you know what? There's a Celtic team no a million miles away from this one that would have done that. See that game towards the end of last season when the league was already wrapped up? They would have just settled for the draw.
Yeah.
They went that extra couple of inches now to get the win over the line, and
That's all it takes sometimes.
Yeah, it sure does. And it was Daizen. We'll talk about him, but no, I was very, very pleased to see what happened in the game, and I thought, I hope they take that and run with it.
Yeah, it's amazing. We've had a few hammer blows dealt to Celtic this season, and you at all times you are keen to avoid comparisons with the COVID season, right? At all times you're like, right, we've had a disaster there, but it's nothing like the COVID season. There's no way. It's nothing like that. Right, we've gone out of Europe, but it's nothing like the COVID season. We're dropping points, but it's nothing like the COVID season. However, is this the turning point? Have we turned the corner? Because I remember doing that every fortnight during that season as well.
There was a lot of
but
that.
Is this the turning point? Yeah. So obviously, there's a long way to go before it would be like that. But we are recording this a matter of days after we've had another European disaster. However, it is within Celtic's grasp to take the positives from what we saw against Motherwell, because that was a good team. I was quite impressed with Motherwell. They were their own, the masters of their own downfall. Ultimately, they paid the price for gifting Celtic a goal, and then were kind of overwhelmed towards the end. But that's because Celtic looked really, really up for it and looked like they wanted to win the game. Now, we've learned very recently in this season that draws won't do. We've had too many draws, we've had too many draws, and another club have had far too many draws, and, and it has cost someone their job. The Drawminator has finally left the building. But yeah, is it the turning point? I don't know. I think we would need to see a little bit more evidence of it. But you're absolutely right. This is not going to be an overwhelming Celtic team that just sweep everything aside and ahead of them. We need to adjust their expectations based on that, based on the reality that we live in now. Post transfer window, this is what we're working with, and I will take any kind of positives. It wasn't just that it was a win; it was a last minute win that felt like it lifted the crowd. I was there, and I've not seen that much this season. Let's face it, we've not really seen an awful lot of positive energy coming off either the pitch or towards it. But the end of that game is completely different. So, in that sense, it can be the turning point. We just need to see it from this team now. So it's unfortunate we don't get the momentum because of the transfer window, but the international break. But that doesn't mean that all is lost. We can come back and build on that, hopefully.
Yeah, I thought we were going to go for a whole podcast without mentioning the transfer window, and you went
almost.
But the sort of one of the reasons I don't think that it will be the turning point, I really hope it is Celtic are going to get these runs punctured by a defeat in Europe. We've got Midtjylland away, we've got Feyenoord away, and if Celtic take a beating in that, and then we've got a Thursday-Sunday game, I think it's going to be very difficult. We've got a lot of games coming up, Hearts away, difficult ties, and even though Celtic got the victory at the weekend, it wasn't a vintage performance from it. We battled it out and we got there in the end, but I just don't see where these runs are going to come from, because I think every game's going to pretty much be like that. But some of them we will slip up. We've seen it against Hibs last week. Probably argue we created more chances against Hibs, but maybe the performance was better against Motherwell. And I don't see where Celtic are just going to all of a sudden go, right, we're up for this. I think they will be up for every game now, but quality just lacks so much. Whereas we're chasing a game like we were at the weekend, if you have to take off IHEANACHO or we get one injury somewhere, the options just dwindle for Celtic, and I just don't know if we can be that team that's going to eke it out all the time. I'd love to see it, but it's not looking like Celtic could draw their next game easily. Quite easily, and then we're sitting here again going, well, was the next one the turning point? Because look, we have sat here for 11 seasons, and the first season we done this, we sat most weeks going, no, this dialer team's going to turn up. They're going to turn up. We got even all the way to April in the Rangers game, and we drew 2-2, then get put out in penalties. Like, oh, they didn't turn up. Teams just don't turn up after a while. It's the way it is. I do agree. I don't think this team have thrown in the towel. I do think they'll put the effort in. I just don't think the quality's there for us to go on a sustained run of winning games.
Yeah, it's not particularly controversial what you're saying either, because Brendan Rodgers literally said that after the game. He said the level of this team is miles away from what he expects of them. Now, you could take that, I suppose, one of several ways. You could take it that Brendan Rodgers acknowledges that they're not in form and it's up to them to work on it. Or you could take it the other way and say, well, the reason we're playing like this is because you've sold all my players. Again, apologies for dragging us back into that subject, but it is simply unavoidable.
What do you think his level is? What do you think his expectation is?
I genuinely don't know at this point.
Miles off this, isn't it? I mean, it's...
Well, even with this squad of players, what would you... We've not had a performance this season where you go, that's what I mean.
So that's what I mean. Is he saying that's exactly my point? Is he saying this team isn't playing at the level that this team is capable of, or this team isn't capable of playing at the level I want it to be because we don't have the players? You could interpret it either one of those ways. Neither of them are particularly good, but one of them is more positive than the other in that you could work on it. But he could be saying, look, this is miles off the level that I want a Celtic team to be. And that'd be, very worrying.
I think the problem that Brendan Rodgers has got, and he said it himself, that he's got all these problems to solve and he doesn't really have... his problem is he has problems to solve.
Right,
and one level down from those problems, he doesn't really have the players in which to solve them. I think I said recently on something that you and I did, Stephen, that the board have basically handed Brendan Rodgers a box of smashed biscuits. It's a mess basically of a squad that he's got.
Still edible, but not ideal.
Not ideal. It's an absolute mess of a squad, and the solution is we're going to just manage harder. Do more football management to this squad, and you'll be fine. And I think that's unfortunately for Brendan what he needs to do. There is no easy fix to getting this team on this run that you were talking about, Melly. There's no. Brendan's just going to have to manage harder. The players are going to have to run harder. They're going to have to be better. And it's up to the manager to get them out of that, because when he talks about problems, Melly, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, just on that, I was thinking there when you were talking about that, the reason I believe it might be like this for a while, or maybe till we go out of Europe and then we get a sort of run of domestic games, is Celtic were fine in that game. They were 1-0 up, absolutely fine, and then all it took was one cross into the box, Motherwell equalise, and they genuinely could have scored another two goals in that time, because Celtic just looked completely rattled in there. And that was a game that Motherwell barely had a chance up until they scored. So the team's fragile, and that's the problem, isn't it? If we are going to go out and win these games, the team need to have confidence, but they need to have confidence when the chips are down, and they don't have that. As soon as that goal went in, you could feel it around the stadium. Like, there was a guy beside me like, what's happened here?
Yeah.
I just felt like if you wouldn't have been surprised if Celtic went a goal down going into the break, and then Motherwell come out in the second half and get the goal, and it was like, this is happening. In fact, this is worse than it's been recently domestically. So that's the reason, is because that Celtic team were fine. They were 1-0 up, trying to push for a second goal. One venture up the pitch for Motherwell, who were a decent team, and they're back in the match, and they could have won the game.
The problem that Brendan's got, or the problem that he's alluding to, he didn't specifically come out and say what each and every problem was, but if you watch Celtic v Braga, you'd think that most of them are on show there. You know, he's got problems. He's got problems in defence. He's got problems with his goalkeeper. He's got problems in his midfield. He's got problems up front. They're all over the park, and he has to try.
That's all the positions,
and that is all the. I did double check, and there are no more positions left to talk about there, because when you're looking at players like Kasper Schmeichel rather, when you're looking at him, you're thinking, there is a problem there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Well, the problem being that he's completely done as a goalkeeper. Is that what we're alluding to? Without
I
saying
mean,
it?
it's such a harsh thing to say, isn't it? But I mean, he doesn't. I mean, he doesn't look great, does it? The last couple of weeks.
When I say done, that means I don't mean to.
Can I just surprise you?
Can I just reverse the use of that language? No, look, he'll be all right for the rest of the season, I think, but I wouldn't be entertaining any notion of giving him another contract after this. I think he's 39 next month. That's it for Kasper Schmeichel. We have to move on from that.
What's Sinisalo done wrong though? Because it could be into a situation where we're seeing Kasper Schmeichel repeatedly make mistakes with a perfectly good goalkeeper on the bench who just doesn't play because of all the problems Brendan Rodgers has got, and many of them are selection based. For me, he doesn't really have a problem between the sticks.
No, the Sinisalo thing I'm intrigued by, because he's looked all right when he's played. He's never struck me as like particularly calamitous or like error prone or anything. We have seen a couple. I think there was he didn't look particularly clever for that Raskin header. Remember there was the
offside one.
Yeah, the one that get chopped off. So but that's it. That's all I'm really pointing to. The problem is with Schmeichel, it gets to the point where if the main problem with Sinisalo, such as it is that he's just not Kasper Schmeichel, and all that Kasper Schmeichel brings, all the leadership and the experience and all that, and married to the fact that has been at points an absolutely top class goalkeeper. That was even evident against Red Star a couple of weeks ago, where he pulled off an amazing save. But if it gets to the point now where that is outweighed by the fact that all that ability is starting to leave him, and that's eminently possible with a 39-year-old goalkeeper. That's going to happen, as was possibly evidenced against Braga. Then that becomes a problem, and all the stuff about how he's a leader and all that doesn't kind of outweigh the fact that you're
still be a leader without playing every
week. Yeah, and if you're shipping goals, you can't justify your selection based on the fact he's a great guy to have around the dressing room. All that kind of stuff that we've heard about Kasper Schmeichel, and is self-evident. I mean, he obviously is a bit of, I nearly said a bit of a leader, but he obviously is a leader. But what I was alarmed at the Braga goal, because it wasn't just that it was a goalkeeping calamity. It was the passing leading up to that point. Yeah. Everyone was groaning when Schmeichel was passing the ball.
At least three.
At least three to that point, and then a goal goes in from 33 yards, as they kept telling us on the coverage, that they kept measuring it and everything. So we definitely know it was 33 yards. But it was the what led up to that point. For me, I said this when we reacted to the game, that I said that I was alarmed by the combination of his footwork in getting across to that ball, and the fact he couldn't decide which hand to go for it with. That's a problem, because that's when I suppose it's kind of like the striker thing. Like, you know, the cliche about strikers is that if he's if a chance falls to them, they score. But if they're given too much time, then they overthink it and they miss. I suppose it might be similar with Schmeichel in that his reflexes are still excellent as he still pops up with saves, like point blank saves, and we saw the one against Leicester. But that one was a ball sailing at him from over 30 yards, and he couldn't get the coordination going. Is it a one-off? Maybe, but I am again pointing to the fact that he's getting up there in terms of his age. He's not in the best of condition either. He's not the best.
And some of his passing as well. It's not just the shot stopping stuff. His passing wasn't the ideal either.
No, it wasn't. So yeah, that was what led up to that point. People were already a bit kind of concerned with KASPER Schmeichel before that goal went in. So I think it is just a case. I don't see Brendan Rodgers making that call. I don't see him dropping him.
No, I don't either.
But I think this has got to be it for this season. We need to move on with that position. We need, if it's going to be Sinisalo, fine, but we need to get the kind of younger head in, I think.
Yeah, Sinisalo's not done anything wrong, but the goalkeeping position's it's a bit different, isn't it? Because if we remember Neil Lennon and his third choice goalkeepers and all that nonsense he talked about, but if we take out KASPER Schmeichel and put in Sinisalo and he makes a mistake, you then put KASPER Schmeichel back in. So the reason KASPER Schmeichel has got to where he is because if he makes a mistake, it probably won't affect him as much. He has the mentality, he has that leadership. So maybe it's just a case of Brendan Rodgers thinking he'll get through this, and he might well do that. But I'm with you guys. I said it at the end of last season. I was really worried that he'd do a McGregor, as in Alan McGregor, and just look absolutely done. It's not quite came yet, but my biggest worry for him is the decision making now, and that comes from, I think you said it on the reaction as well, Stephen, doubting your own ability. To get there. And last season we all went, wow, look at this guy coming in. Joe Hart, we thought was a good goalkeeper, and then you've seen what a guy who can play the passes can do for you. Now he's putting teammates in danger a lot of the time with his passing. And
then blaming them.
Yeah, and you do, when it gets to that stage, you look at him and go, what were you thinking there? Because this time last season you weren't thinking like that. So what's changed here in that time? And it can only be his belief in his own ability for me. It might not be. He's probably a strong guy mentally, but once you get to that age and you can't pull off those saves or you can't make that, when doubt starts to creep in, you start doing things that you never done before.
Or physically. I mean, he's getting to that age now where it is a concern. Because
there was even a throw out at the weekend, but he tried to throw it out to the left back position, and the Motherwell player just cut it out. And you're like, what did you see there that nobody else did? Because of the Braga game, again with him, you're like, what did you think was going to happen there that nobody else seen? Because you've just passed it to somebody, put us under pressure again, and then one flies in from 30 odd yards beyond you, and you're like, is this the game? But he did pull off a decent save at the weekend. I don't think it will be the end of him, but I think it is this season. I wouldn't be surprised if Sinisalo's in towards the end of the season, but with the mentality, it might just be a case of we need to keep this guy in there, because if I take that leadership out of the team, where else am I going to get it?
Yeah, and just very briefly, branching off from the KASPER Schmeichel but related subjects, I came away from the Braga thing thinking, you look at the makeup of Celtic's team now, and there's KASPER Schmeichel, Kieran Tierney, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Rio Hatate, Callum McGregor, there's Kelechi Iheanacho. We've put together a team here that is either completely or about to be finished in the cases of Schmeichel and, to a less extent, maybe Forrest, McGregor. They're starting to get old for their positions, or guys that have suffered really severe injuries in the last 2 or 3 years. And there's nothing you can do about injuries. That's not my point. It's that we've signed 3 of those players in the last year and a bit to add to all these kind of quite injury-prone players. And I just think that's
the age profile as well.
That's what I mean. So we've cobbled together this squad that is quite fragile overall. There are a lot of injuries in there. There's a lot of wear and tear. Kelechi Iheanacho is a guy who has looked good. I think he's contributed, but I don't really see that. It's like we'd be ignoring the evidence of the last 2 seasons where fans of other clubs have complained that the guy is never quite fit. He might come in and score a couple of goals, but he'll never get 100% fit. So all of that added together has made for a bit of a messy squad. If we didn't know it already, a bit of a mess of a squad.
Didn't even mention Carter-Vickers there. He's not had his injury yet this season.
He's not been injured this season, but I acknowledge that he is definitely one of the ones that has had a pretty severe run of injuries in the recent past. So the squad is I mean, as I say, I don't want to labour the point, but it has its issues, not only in terms of personnel, but just how we've put it together. There's a lot of players in there who are either coming towards the end of their career or have, as I say, a lot of mileage on the legs.
The squad is a mess. I think you're right, and you've touched on a thing that I'd not sort of considered before. Not just the makeup of the squad and the transfers we made, but again the age and stage of some of these guys' careers that we managed to hodgepodge together, and that is definitely must be a factor. And
I didn't even mention Jota and Alistair Johnson, who are currently long-term injured as well, so it's adding to the problem.
But when you sticking on the theme of sort of this game potentially being a turning point, you have to turn away from something, and I think that Braga game was a real low, a serious low. It was it embarrassing? It was really verging on embarrassing.
I was embarrassed. That is a team that came to Celtic Park, and I don't think they were great. It wasn't a team. We've had the European humbleds before, and you go, do you know what? They're a decent team.
Yeah.
I never got that with Braga. It was a case of letting Celtic play, and then they scored that wonder goal, if you want to call that, a goalkeeping error. But they never really threatened after that, apart from the calamity towards the end. And it just looked like Celtic were just there trying to punch this team that were there to be punched, but couldn't land a jab on them at all, even though they weren't doing much about it. So for me, it was one of the, we've had the European humblings and it's usually Champions League level. This felt like we've just been pummeled in the Europa League at Celtic Park by a team that I think we should be comfortably beaten. Yes, they're Portuguese, they're in Europe every year. Rangers have beaten them comfortably twice in
a bad start to the season domestically.
They're not doing too well, and it was just that there wasn't the usual player that stood out and say, oh, he's a cracking player.
You've been undone by a Pedro for Lazio or like a Cavani or a Mbappe or Neymar or something like that.
We could sit here and rhyme them off. This one felt different. This one felt like we're a bad team. And this was the Red Star game. We thought, do you know what? Wasn't a great performance, but we got a draw away from home. You'll probably take that. We've got 2 home games now that are winnable, and then the first one out of them, you go and take, you can't even score a goal and you take a beating. It was one of those ones that we might not get through in this league phase, which is really poor from Celtic, because we've looked at this and went, right, we're in the Europa League, let's try and make a fist of it. And then the first sort of game, you think this is a winnable one, come unstuck and it's like 2-0, and then you go, where do we go from here? Because for me, the games probably only get harder.
It's only a week ago I sat here, I think it was last week in fact, that I said, like, the Europa League is now the focus for me because I want to see what this Celtic team is made of. So here I am sitting a week later, or at the most a fortnight later, thinking, right, are we kind of running out of games to actually do something at all? Again, what I said at the time was that, like, I want to win the Europa League at some point in my lifetime. It certainly wasn't including, I didn't expect it to happen this year. That's just a kind of, it's non-negotiable. It's this year or nothing. But it's a total pipe dream, but that's what I would like to see at some point, obviously. But it's not looking too good at all.
I think that game was a really good example of all the problems that Brendan Rodgers said he's got in one game. That was a real encapsulation, that game, of where I think this Celtic team were. In fact, you could argue that game could have been the turning point. That game is probably a game where the squad could have looked at themselves and went, listen, we've got to be, if we want to do anything in anywhere that we're in, we have to be a lot better than that, because there was something quite inert. I want to say pathetic, but the Celtic were really inert. I mean,
reputations are at stake, Nick's moves are at stake. There's a lot going on for these players as well. They have to turn up. If they want to, like Daizen, like HATATE, any of these guys you might want to name, if they want to make a move, they can't be going out and embarrassing themselves in the Europa League. If 18 months ago they were being seen as like proper Champions League competitors, now like teams are going to look at them and think, the state of this mob. So the things are at stake, whether it's for selfish reasons for players or for the benefit of Celtic, doesn't matter, because the end result is that Celtic do well in the Europa League anyway. So I totally take the point that the players need to be looking at themselves.
I thought IHEANACHO did okay in the game, but again, he looks like a player that's coming up to speed. But I see, as soon as I saw that handball, the phantom handball, I put on our Twitter feed the worst VAR decision in the history of VAR in any game ever. And there was a lot of comments like, behave and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, was that too harsh? And then the more I saw it, the more I was like, no, that's the worst call VAR has ever made in the history of VAR. And then eventually, like, the footballing world starts to see and you see all sorts of random accounts and journalists and all these
I
radio
said that at
stations.
the time. I said this is going to receive like widespread
Yeah.
coverage, surely.
I've never seen anything like it in my life. Even now, I think the story was, although you never get the full story, the story was that either the linesman called it, but VAR
Yes.
told him he'd made a mistake. They didn't want to change his mind or something like
VAR,
that.
something like VAR couldn't conclusively decide that he was wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, hold on a minute. What is the sole purpose of VAR? It's to try and eliminate mistakes from refereeing, like clear and obvious errors.
Yeah.
The clear and obvious error there was that a goal was chopped off. Could we not use VAR for good for a change instead of evil?
So this one's not really VAR's fault then, is it?
No, but
I think VAR tried to do the right thing, but
Yeah.
the ref was like, not interested.
possibly, but that's a perfectly good goal has been chopped off. There was a moment when we went to react to it on Patreon. There was a moment where I saw it on TNT Sports, I think it was, and then subsequently, just as we were about to hit record on our reaction to it, I'd heard Sports Sound talking. It was James McFadden saying, "Oh, I've just seen an angle where it should." But right, so I saw that as well, and I thought, "Oh, right, is that the kind of smoking gun here?" There was one from directly in front that looks like when Iheanacho brings his hand down, he brushes the ball ever so slightly with like the tips of his fingers or his knuckles or something. But then you see it from the side, and the ball travels past his hand
Yeah.
and just hits him in the forehead. It is preposterous. So all that VAR, or a combination of VAR and the referee and the linesman or whoever was involved in the decision making, has ruled out a perfectly good goal. Well, this is the exact opposite. This is the one thing we didn't want to happen when it comes to implementation of VAR. I know that sometimes it takes extraordinary circumstances to show up that there is a problem with the ruling, that there's a problem with the wording of the ruling. I totally get that. But surely we should, something has to be adjusted here where, no, but VAR can't involved in these circumstances. No, but
Yeah.
the on-field decision, but zoom out a wee bit, guys. We've chopped off a perfectly good goal here. Now, I want to be clear here. I think if we say that decision was the reason that Celtic lost the game, I think that's burying the lead. I think Celtic were garbage in the game and probably deserved to lose anyway. But at the same time, you can't just go chopping off perfectly good goals for no reason, because a combination of but this decision versus that, but the rules come in here. All that has resulted in is a goal has been chopped off for nothing.
Yeah, and after the game, maybe my reaction was, well, doesn't matter because Celtic were crap in the game. They never deserved anything. But that goal we could be sitting here talking about was the Braga game, the turning point where Celtic have got themselves into the game. They didn't create the chance themselves. It was just a bit of luck. It came. Iheanacho buries at a good goal, and that could be the moment that spurs the team on. And if they go and beat Braga 2-1, and then we go and we beat Motherwell, we're going, all right, 2 games in a row, we've done it. We're going into the international break. We've got the 4 points from 6 in the Europa League. That's a massive call from a referee that wasn't a difficult call, and then for it to not be given is ridiculous now, and it just shows you that the fine margins there, that's a goal that should have stood. Celtic could be sitting here in a totally different situation, but we're not. We're up against it, and we didn't play well the rest of the game, but it just shows that that's ridiculous that goal has been chalked off for that. I still can't get my head around it.
Would he make a Iheanacho so far in his contribution? Because there was a lot of, I think, that people, us on the podcast, were quite harsh on him when he first arrived. I've got to be honest, the guy's wanting his magic on me. I said a couple of weeks ago, I'm warming up to him. I like an underdog. When I saw him,
cult hero potential.
when I saw him on the touchline against Motherwell, kicking every ball after he was
the most he moved the whole game.
Where did he get that turn of pace when we
see, to be fair, see something. I know this is going against all evidence that we've seen from, or heard rather, about Iheanacho's career, right? Since his glory days 5 years ago and his subsequent moves to Seville and Motherwell, Middlesbrough rather. But sometimes all you do need is a renewed enthusiasm for the game. Sometimes you get a second wind in your career and things go your way and you play
often at Celtic as well.
You play a bit more football than you were expected to play, and the manager likes you a wee bit more, and things go your way. And I think already Iheanacho Melli has probably contributed a lot more in games than people expected him to when he first came.
I think so. He looks like a very good finisher. He looks like one of those guys where you see his touch, you see his finish and go, he's a player. what's the catch here? And the catch is Celtic have got him after the deadline and he's nowhere near fit. And the reason I say he's nowhere near fit is if he drops off and picks up the ball and Celtic get the ball out wide, he's never in the box to get it. And that is the problem. There has been a lot of, I really like him. I think he has got that cult hero status probably coming on already. Is he ever going to get fit and firing? I'm not sure. But he has massive flaws in his game, like every Celtic signing seems to be. When Celtic get the ball out wide and balls are flashed across the box, he should be there to tap it in, but he's not. And a lot of the time, he's not in the vicinity at all. And I can't really forgive that because
Is that not the manager's fault then? Because the manager's looking at him every day in training, realising he's not the player to do that. So the manager needs to come up with a solution for that. You can't say to a guy, our whole game plan revolves on you dropping 40 yards for goal, receiving it, playing out wide, and then getting back in goal. Because if the plain physics of the matter are, well, I'm much slower than he is. I'm nowhere near fit enough to make that run. I'll just keep doing it. We'll figure something out. Come on, Gaffer, you need to do a solid for me here.
What I mean by that is, if those balls are put across the box, Kyogo's there for everyone. Even when it's not even all the time when he drops deep. Sometimes when the balls are just going across the box, he's not there.
Yes, I did see that, John. I did see that in Braga. There was a lot of he's not as if he's away in midfield. He's like 8 yards back.
Yeah,
you know,
and that's where he has to be in there because he's the guy. I got it with Samaras all the time. He would, why are you not there? Because would say the way Celtic play, that's what we're looking for. Is balls across the box. He should be there. The winger should be. Other winger should be behind him. And if we break down his goals, he's had a couple of penalties, but the goal in Belgrade and the goal against Braga, none of them are tap-ins. None of his goals so far have been tap-ins. And see if he could bring that to his game, he would be on 5-6 goals by now.
Missed a couple of sitters as well.
That used to be what's the word I'm looking for? That used to be a compliment when you see that about a player never scored a tap in, did he? And they were like, "I'm going to score a couple of tap ins, you lazy bastard."
It's because Celtic fire so many balls across the box, and you should be there. Yeah. I think it's with the way Celtic are right now. We can't really afford to be passing up those opportunities because the creativity's not there. And if that ball's going across and you go, where's my striker? That's where you should be. But I do think he's come in and he's done much better than expected. But the expectations were probably very low. But for him, I need to see that enthusiasm to get himself in those positions, because if he does, he could easily be into 15 to 20 goals for Celtic. But I just don't think it'll come. I don't think that's in his game.
Turning corners, Stephen, and Brendan's problems is probably the theme of this week's podcast. And I think the most glaring problem that Brendan has that he needs to try and solve, and Callum McGregor touched on it as well, and it's something we've been speaking about, is this midfield. It is not
Paulo Bernardo in from the cold, man.
And it's straight back in.
Paulo,
straight back into the cold.
Straight back out after.
You know, Bernardo's middle name is Who Gives a Fuck. Paulo, Who Gives a Fuck Bernardo. No offence to the guy, I just mean like, there was people like, right, get Bernardo in, and he comes in and he's an NPC. He could have literally been any Celtic midfielder.
It's a symptom of this type of season, though.
That's the problem the midfield have got.
And it's a football fan thing, but I think I feel like particularly Celtic fans, and particularly when things aren't going well, we start mega hyping up the guys who aren't playing. It happens all the time. We can trace it all the way back to...
Happens to Dom Mackay. We do it to CEOs. He should never have let him go.
He gets better the more he doesn't executive.
Celtic's loss is the SEC's game.
He is the Derek Riordan of executives in Scottish football. So Bernardo, he came in and then went straight back out again and didn't even get off the bench against Motherwell. So yeah, it is a problem. Yeah, can I briefly just touch on IHEANACHO? I haven't moved on from the subject, but you referenced the reaction to him coming in. I was furious when Celtic signed
IHEANACHO. I think you called it the most embarrassing signing of all time.
I thought it was appalling. I went in my bed on transfer deadline day when it slammed shut. I went in my bed absolutely seething, and then when I woke up, it was one of those ones you turn over and you look at your phone, and that's the first thing I saw. They've signed Kelechi IHEANACHO overnight. I went from annoyed and disappointed with the transfer window to like Malcolm Tucker storming about the house.
The crossest man in Scotland.
It's a fucking lockdown. So So I was, but that was, it was because of the process that led us to that. It's nothing really about Iheanacho, although I did think, right, so this was the grand plan, was it? Some guy who's been unfit for about 3 years, and we've not only replaced Ida, but we've effectively replaced Kyogo with this guy. So I hold my hands up. I was absolutely fuming about it. But look, I agree with everything that's been said. There are clear deficiencies there. I personally don't think he'll ever get to a level of fitness where he can be reasonably be called a like for like replacement for Kyogo, which is ultimately what we want.
Is that about fitness though? Because they're entirely different footballers.
Well, that's the problem in itself. So you've replaced Kyogo with a guy, but I know, and not directly, but a guy who is very, very different and is significant. Well,
is he better than Ida already?
But I don't know. I mean,
I'd say so. I'd say from what I've seen, I'm more impressed by his
heel
hold-up.
turn on Ida, isn't he?
No, it's not heel. I'm not saying I hate Ida, but I'm just saying from his hold-up play,
that is better.
And bringing it out is better, and his finishing is better than Adam Ida.
Maybe, but again, we've got one goal is what we're dealing with just now. Prior to the Braga game, prior to the Motherwell game, we had 2 scoreless games in a row, and he played in both of them. So he's been fine, but the point still stands. He has greatly outperformed my expectations of him, and of the nature of the signing. I thought
he's got 3 and 6 and 1 assist.
2 penalties. So.
That's what I mean. But 2 penalties, I think. Again, that's not nothing, but you would expect a guy of that experience to be scoring his penalties. He's missed a couple of sitters as well, so it's not like he's been completely out of position and all that. So he's got into the box, and there's been a few decent saves. He missed an absolute howler against a Red Star, I think it was, wasn't it? So I think he's been decent, but he can get better he looks very, very enthusiastic. I think the evidence was pretty clear when he was like heading every ball, as we said, going into every tackle when he was on the bench. But he is a guy who's going to have to be taken off in virtually every game, and that involves having to play Daizen in not only
3 different positions.
3 different positions in one game, 4 different positions in a game and a half. In the last couple of games, he was right wing back, and then he's played all the way across the front 3. However, what I would say is that I think Iheanacho is the ideal guy to have if Celtic get a striker in January. Now, that's an enormous if, because we're just off the back of a transfer window where a number of disappointments were carried out. But if Celtic get a striker who can help out with that position, I can't think of many better people than having Kelechi Iheanacho as an option. Whether it's to play the first hour or to come on for the last half hour doesn't really concern me. I think he's an ideal candidate for that role, but he can't be the only guy.
No, just sticking with Iheanacho before we get on at the midfield. If we could put Iheanacho in the Celtic team of last season, where you've got Kuhn and Maeda either side flying, it would be perfect. Him dropping deep, laying those guys on, and wingers that could go in and score goals. But we don't have that now, so we've got him dropping deep, and then we've got wingers who aren't scoring at the moment, and it just doesn't add up.
Yeah. So where were we? Midfield.
Yep.
Pish.
Yes, I'm trying to run through Brendan Rodgers' problems.
Yes.
We've landed on the goalkeeper, but we've kind of decided that by hook or by crook, we're going to have to stick with KASPER SCHMEICHEL for the rest of the season. That's probably the way it's going to pan out. We spoke about the inert display against Braga, and we were talking about Kelechi Iheanacho. We've kind of decided that I quite like him. You've still to make your mind up, and he's smelly. You're sort of in there.
I like him. It's
same.
It's just the flaws that come along with it, isn't it? The fitness and the having to take him off and all that.
Which
but that's where we are in it.
Another one of Brendan's problems. He's kind of got an unfit, unfancied, not number 1, probably a number 2 striker, but he has to play him every week. But I was saying about the midfield that it's just by Callum McGregor's own admission, they're still trying to work out what the best midfield is, and I think the problem there is multiple. Callum McGregor doesn't look on the same wavelength as any of his teammates at all. I'm really struggling to figure out his role in this team. HATATE is just out there vibing. I can't remember the last time I watched Rio HATATE and thought, what a performance for that guy. It's been those games where
probably know this season anyway. I kind of think no.
Those games that he sort of lights the game up are few and far between. I mean, I think we've had 5 in 12 months, if I'm being lucky.
Could be.
Bernardo we touched upon. Negrin is not. It's that midfield melee is just. It's not working. I don't know what Brendan does to fix it though.
No, we've got too many similar players, haven't we? Again, we spoke about it earlier. There's no specialists in there, and even at the weekend, I was do you know what? I'm quite happy to see Luke McCowan in there. It's a home game against domestic opposition.
He was all right in the previous domestic home game, yeah.
game completely passed them by. Rio Hatate as well. Callum McGregor misplacing simple passes that he just wasn't doing. It's along with everything else Celtic have got to contend with is the midfield problem, because again, with problems all over the pitch, I'm not looking at it and going, right, see if we take KASPER out and put in Sinisalo, that cuts out the goals. We're shipping it out because he's throwing them in. That's not happening. And it's the same in midfield, because we've tried absolutely everything. Callum McGregor's going to play. Taking him out, nah, not for me, because there's nobody that can get near what he can do for Celtic, even though his performances are really poor now. Ahead of him, we've tried Bernardo now, we've tried McCowan, Hatate, Negrin. What's the best three in there? I have no idea.
I think Brendan Rodgers doesn't know either. And,
No.
and Cal McGregor probably doesn't know.
Quite
No,
odd that when Callum McGregor said that about still trying to figure things out in midfield, I did think that was quite telling, or rather quite kind of alarming to hear a guy saying that, considering it's been basically the same midfield most of the season. Yes, there have been a few games that have changed things about a wee bit, brought in Bernardo, as you said earlier. Engels has started maybe 3 or 4 games, but for the most part it has been McGregor, Hatate, Negrin, and they're still figuring out how to go about it.
just it's not a good balance in there, is it?
Yeah.
Because Negrin's mobility isn't there, but he does get goals and assists. But if that dries up for him, I don't really see what he brings. Hatate, like you're saying,
Just a quite tedious David Turnbull at that
Yeah.
point, isn't it? Where he's always celebrations.
yeah. And while we're on it, somebody has to sit him down and go, look, mate, wisen up a bit here. That run into the crowd celebrating when your team have just got back into the game. And
I've seen
Kelechi Iheanacho has to
Yeah.
sprint over and get you back when everybody.
I've seen
come on.
several tweets saying I've never been angrier after
Oh.
a goal at home.
It was shocking from him, but look, you could look at him and go, "Aye, he's done his job. He's getting goals and assists." But it's not what we want from a midfielder. Aye, we want goals and assists, of course, but what else do you bring to the party? And I don't see it.
So what does the midfield lack?
It lacks a ball winner for me. It
Yeah.
lacks the thing Brendan Rodgers has been talking about, power. There's no power in there. I see midfielders pick up the ball and drive on. Celtic, Callum McGregor used to do that. When he had Callum McGregor had Greg Taylor moving inside, it meant he had somebody there close to him and the other fullback. I don't really know what Celtic are doing with the fullbacks now. It doesn't seem to be, they're not out wide and they're not inverting. Everywhere's caught in the middle, which doesn't give Callum McGregor any protection at all. Callum McGregor, again, has to find a way around it. But if teams are going to mark him in every game, it just looks like he points now, and it's become a thing.
I'm tired of hearing. Do you know this pointing thing? I'm tired of hearing it. No, not the pointing thing, the marking him out the game thing. The pointing thing is hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm glad people are picking up on it now. But the marking, because that used to be the thing, and we used to talk about it here, and I used to go, Cal McGregor was crap, and you'd say to me, and I can hear your voice, but you're not the only one that says this. You go, but it was marked out the
Do an
game.
impression.
I can't really do melee.
No.
He goes, he was marked out the game, and I'll go, I marked out the game by some guy that gets paid £600 a week, or,
Right,
or,
yeah.
or do you know what I mean? A fraction of his wages. That is.
Aye, if
If
he's
it's
marked
all-
out the game, but it means somebody else isn't marked, so Celtic should be able to go out.
Yeah.
But,
But
we
you don't
fail at
mark
that.
good. You just don't. But I suppose my argument is, surely it has to be more difficult. That if Cal McGregor is a fantastic player, we know he is. Surely it has to be more difficult to basically remove him from the Celtic than they just marking him at the game. I just marked him and he was completely innocuous.
There should be other options Celtic have by going, we'll drop another player in there and go 4-2-3-1. But like,
Or be better. I suppose my point is, Cal McGregor, can you not just be better than the guy that's marking you?
yeah, you can,
Yeah.
but I guess
Can you be more mobile and athletic though? Because
Yeah,
what
that's
you're
the
dealing
problem.
with is like you can be a significantly better footballer, but if you're 32 and the guy marking you is 19 or whatever, you're going to probably struggle to shake him off if that's the kind of main thing.
And again, if you look further ahead, if Callum McGregor's getting marked all the time, it might be a way of letting him off with things. But Celtic's midfield, like Hatate, Negrin, Bernardo, Engels, McCowan, none of them are in form that they'd be the ones to drop in, or they've got the mobility, or they've got the power and the drive. Celtic lack in the biggest area of the pitch all the things that Brendan Rodgers has been speaking about since he came in here. We've got no power, we've got no pace in there's no drive. It's just guys that are kind of number 10s that have been moved back to number 8 and they're just put in there, and it's just under Ange it was total football, and we had a way that we could get these guys on, and we maybe didn't need power in there because of the way we played. We need it in there now, and it just completely lacks it. And when Brendan Rodgers is trying to solve problems, he changed it against Braga and tried to go different and a different formation. I don't think it got any better. And every time I look for a solution somewhere, what if we went 3-4-3 or 3-5-2? I bet we've no right wing back, or we've still got no right winger. Every time you try to change a formation, you go, I bet we've not got that there or not got that there. So I don't really know what we do in midfield.
Everything comes back to squad management,
Yeah.
doesn't it? I think
It
every
all comes
road,
back to the CEO
every
and the
road,
mess that he made of our team.
every road leads back here, because when we're having this conversation about Callum McGregor, it would be my preference that January, a suitable replacement for Callum McGregor would be the priority. If
Somebody
I'm honest.
play beside him at
Well,
least.
yeah, if not beside him, then I would prefer like a physical, athletic midfielder, deep lying midfielder, whatever shape that takes. And I think Callum McGregor could currently be doing a better job of whatever it is Negron's currently doing. For now, anyway, I think if you move Callum McGregor into that position, which I was never really in favour of in previous years, but now I think it's a priority to get someone in there. But again, it all leads back to just poor recruitment and squad management.
Would he make a HATATE?
Not much, to be honest.
I know it's quite disappointing, and I think HATATE. I know the whole team are suffering just now, and there's problems over the patch, but I think Rio HATATE is quietly getting worse and worse. I don't think there's an awful lot of focus on how quite poor Rio HATATE's been recently.
It's just anonymous, really. He's a guy who always was capable of being on the periphery of things, but was capable of those moments of magic we've spoken about so many times. And even as recently as probably the end of last season, we were talking about how, that's why Brendan leaves him on all the time, because those moments can come up. It's just, for whatever reason, it just hasn't happened this season. I don't know if, again, it's not particularly insightful from me, but it might just be one of those ones where the guy's just been here too long. Everyone's kind of figured him out a wee bit probably by now. If you
They
can't,
marked him at the game as well.
yeah, it seems like it. It's, but I wouldn't want to take the responsibility away from him. But like, people figured you out eventually. If you're the kind of creative spark of a team, there was even a moment against Motherwell where I think their keeper had the ball at his feet for ages, right? And HATATE is usually quite responsible for kind of leading the press from the front. You can see him involved in it right at the front. But there was a moment that all the crowd started to get all tetchy and tense about it, because the keeper was just standing there on the ball for ages, and HATATE's kind of looking round, wondering what he's supposed to do, and eventually went to close the keeper, and everyone's like, what did he do that 12 seconds ago, mate? So it's a wee bit puzzling watching him play just now. Again, I think the midfield needs absolutely gutted. He's just part of that. He's been an absolutely brilliant player for Celtic, but I just think it's gotten to that point now where the bad outweighs the good, and by a significant margin. I think I've always thought that the scales of that can kind of tip one way or the other. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes it may be shit with that today. But it's for a wee while his contribution has dipped off to the point where you can no longer sort of in good conscience make that comparison, because it just isn't there anymore. So it's another one of those ones where I don't see it all of a sudden kicking into life. I think it is just a case that we need to refresh this squad from top to bottom. Really, not like every single player, but that sort of spine that we're so used to over the last 4 or 5 years kind of needs dismantled at this point.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? You've spoken about it recently, Jamie, as well. Is like, right, Callum McGregor's a good player. Rio HATATE's a good player. Carter Vickers is a good player. Maeda's a good player. Why do these good players not look as good as they have done previously? Their performance, yes. Players around them as well. And we've seen over the years, Rio HATATE looked at his best when we had Callum McGregor, we had Matt O'Reilly, we had Rodgers, we had options in there where players could be in there. And if Rio HATATE wasn't having a good game, take him out. Rio HATATE has always been a good player for Celtic, but he's never been a great player for me. Now he's one of our main players, and that's not through him elevating his performances. That's because other great players have left the team, and he goes up. So no doubt he's been brilliant, but it's been a long time since he's been brilliant, and we're just not getting that anymore. He's in there through default rather than on merit right now, and it's just the way it is with the squad management.
Aye, so when Brendan's speaking about problems, they do exist all over the pitch, but I am quite hopeful that we don't have the players. We don't have the players on the bench. We don't have the star striker. We don't have
This sentence started with "I am hopeful."
I'll tell you what. I'll
Where's
tell
it
you why
going?
I'm hopeful.
99 problems. Getting sacked isn't one.
Well,
for
that's it.
Brendan,
Well,
innit?
we've got so many problems. We don't have. Okay, we don't have the goalkeeper that we want. That's performing the way we want. We might not have the defence that we want with Kieran Tierney seemingly not being able to play every single week and our star right back injured. We don't have the midfield that we're looking for. We don't have any right wingers.
Right.
We don't have Maeda of last season. We don't have the strikers that we need.
It's good this, even though you're just listing problems.
But what we've got is a bit of fight about us finally again.
Yeah,
We've got a
there
bit
is
of
that.
heart about us again. And
Yeah.
I said at the beginning of the podcast, maybe Motherwell was the turning point. And I think maybe Braga should be the turning point. Braga might be the game where
Aye, enough.
Watershed.
the squad look at themselves and go, did we really just lose 2-0 there? Come on, I know we're not having the best of time. I know Hatate's, I don't know, not the player he used to be, and Maeda wants to leave, and all these other various issues. But it could be worse. I mean, it really could be worse. And I'm not comparing us to Rangers because, you know, we're just completely different animals as football clubs. And hopefully now, with him out the picture, Celtic can really, really press on and leave nothing behind for the new guy that comes in. But we cannot let a podcast pass
Oh, Rusty.
without talking about Brussels farting. And it's so childish, isn't it? That, honestly, when the news was breaking yesterday on social media and all the big Rangers accounts, he's got to go, it's an absolute disgrace. All the massivest Rangers fans on social media, like Graham Spears and Ibrox chatting all these accounts, someone was on social media just going, take a joke for fuck's sake. Right? Because it is the whole thing. But we've kept our powder dry a wee bit on Russell, partly because we didn't beat him and it takes a bit of the edge off. But the whole thing has been objectively hilarious. We're just watching how catastrophic, Stephen, this appointment has been. How he's the worst manager they've ever had.
Yes, I think that's pretty much without doubt now, because all the kind of long-standing comparisons were to stuff from like 40, 50 years ago, and then they went and drew again. So I don't know where that leaves them in that particular league table, but it's not good. But it's baffling. The whole thing is like, it didn't follow the trajectory that we expect, that we've now become accustomed to basically every year, every 18 months now. We've been doing that. How many managers have we seen just in the lifetime of the
my
podcast?
God.
8, 9 or something like that?
Rangers
probably by this
managers?
point. Yeah.
Oh, must be more than that.
Probably. So we've been going 10 years. We must have seen, in terms of like interims and all that, it must be probably 7, 8, 9. So they follow very similar trajectories most of the time. It is, they come in, they look to bring back the standards, the suits, the ties and all that, right? Then they win a few games and it's, right, this is a man of substance, this is proper long-term stability, this is Rangers coming back to reclaim normal service restored and all that, right? And then what happens is that it slowly but surely kind of trickles off, and then into the second season, and they get sacked within a few weeks of the season starting because it goes disastrously. That didn't happen this time. None of that happened. It was basically just doomed from the word go. There was no positivity from it at all. Not a single moment of positivity, apart from a couple of European qualifiers that they won. But I was listening, I heard, speaking of Graham Spears, I heard his podcast where he had on Stephen McGowan and Ewan Murray, and they were talking about the sacking of Russell Martin, and they were kind of musing on, it just seems like Rangers fans just never took to him at any point. And I'm like, the three of them were quite confused by this, and I'm like, are we though? Because it seems quite obvious to me. Now, the Rangers fans didn't take to him for a single second. I would say that a lot even actively hated him.
Yeah.
But it is not. It's because they have become coincidentally vindicated by it, because it was disastrous on the pitch as well. But it didn't get to that point. Like, so it was from the word go, they absolutely hated him, and I think it's basically just because he offended their very sensibilities. Everything about the guy just screamed as if
modern.
Yeah, a modern, quite thoughtful, quite quiet and confident guy who didn't really buy into what it is that they are. They want an angry old bigots shouting at people and holding people up against the dressing room wall by their throat and all that, standards and suits and all that kind of stuff. Right, that's what they want, and he couldn't be further from that at all. So he offended their sensibilities from basically day one. I've never heard so much about what a manager does or doesn't eat in my entire life.
Or where.
Yeah. And it's I can't help but think there's just that it was destined. It was oil and water, and it was never going to work out. The other thing as well, he seemed quite an oddly unshakable character. I thought a few weeks ago I was observing all this because it was hilarious, but I thought he's not going to have the meltdown. He's not going to go nuts like Kashinya or Clement or anything like that, because he's completely unmoved by all of this. He seems to be taking it all in his stride, even though it is on fire round about him. So I don't know. They just hated him from word go. I wonder if there's maybe an element as well where, of course, like famously, Russell Martin's partner is the lovely Lucy Pinder, the goat of Lads Mags from the 2000s. Who's that? Maybe it made people feel a wee bit insecure or a wee bit sort of self-conscious about their Lana Wolf subscriptions.
Jesus.
Taking out in Russell Martin, hunched over their laptops like staunch cashews, having a look at themselves, thinking,
"Sordid little gargoyles."
That Russell Martin, wait, I'm going to take it out on him. So
they're spending $8.99 a month on Whitney Sweeney.
so maybe there was an element of that, but no, it is over now. We hardly knew ye. Who knows where they go next? But we thought it was worthwhile talking just at this point, because it's a seismic shift potentially in this title race of 25-26.
Well, listen, check the record, bud. We were talking about him when he first got announced, Melly. You were a fan. I'll come to you in a second. You can tell all the boys and girls why and how wrong you were, and you can apologise. But I did say that he had a whiff of the bullshit about him.
Aye.
And I said that I'd seen all this Championship and League One signing stuff before, and I wasn't too perturbed by it. But that doesn't mean I saw it coming. I did not see it going as badly as it went on this occasion. And if there's any lessons for Celtic to learn, there are lessons here for Celtic to learn. One, if a manager starts disastrously, doesn't get any better, you just need to, don't hold out hope for him turning it around massively. Two, if the fans are against somebody, if the fans don't want a manager in, there's 0 point.
No, that was the main thing.
There's no point appointing the guy and trying to battle it off. If we keep winning games, then we'll turn them all around. It's never, ever, ever going to happen. Stephen, you said that Rangers probably had 7 or 8 managers, and I had to go and check.
All right.
So we've had 12 managers since we started our Celtic podcast in 2015. Let's play penalties, right? Smelly, how many do you think you can name?
12.
8. Stephen?
Do I make Melly go with 8, or do I outbid him with 9, is it? I'll go 9.
Right, go. You go, Stephen.
Right, okay. So, working backwards, Russell Martin.
Correct.
Barry Ferguson.
Correct.
Philippe Clement.
Correct.
He replaced Michael Beale.
I'm including interims here, yeah.
Giovanni Van Bronckhorst.
Correct. That's 5. We need 4 more.
Pedro Caixinha.
Yep, 6.
Mark Warburton.
7.
Graham Murty.
Yep.
8.
Oh, this one to take it. Who have I missed? Stephen Davis.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
You could have had Stephen Davis or Jimmy Nicol.
Stuart McCall in there, was that?
Jimmy Nicol.
That was prior to Mark Warburton. That was prior to Mark Warburton. Melly.
Obsessed Manx once again.
I know you named every Rangers manager for the past 10 years. Obsessed.
Because we've laughed at them all.
I know. Melly, any lessons for Celtic in this Russell Martin thing?
Yeah, I suppose there is. Like, you need to get somebody in with a man of substance, and I suppose it is. You need to get a manager in that the fans can take to. And from the get-go, I thought, do you know what? There's a chance that, I don't know if I said it on here, but I definitely said it in our Discord because I went back to check last night. I said, look, he could be their Ange, but I said, but I don't think they will give him the chance to be, because that's not what they want. What they want is dig and fight in their team. They don't want somebody to come in and have these modern ideas. Again, I never envisaged that it would go this badly. They could have sacked him a month ago and it would have been probably vindicated now, but they've stuck with it. And
one of their podcasts went viral, I'm sure, weeks ago, because one of the guys said like, Russell Martin has to go now, and everybody was laughing about it, but that was about 6 or 7 weeks ago. He was absolutely right.
Yeah, and look, you see sometimes, look,
this is the Rangers podcast.
Don't we all? What I was doing last night. We've seen it even right now. Our hero Ange, he could get the bullet by Nottingham Forest after 7 games or something like that.
Ridiculous.
So sometimes it doesn't work out at teams, but yeah, you have to go in and you have to have a plan. With Rangers, I didn't envisage it going this bad, but he came in and he just tried to tear everything up straight away. Any Rangers player that was decent last season, he took them out the team. Tavernier, Raskin, Dessers. He just took them out of the team and brought in guys who weren't as good. So
Yeah.
you need to come in and you need to have a plan. I'm glad it's not worked out, but with this one, I've not quite got the enjoyment I usually get out of it, because
No.
there's not been that build up where I've got to really get into the guy and think, I want to beat you. There's
We've been too
also,
distracted with Celtic as well. The
Ah,
fact
yeah,
that
that's
we've
it.
been so poor.
and
Plus,
then we couldn't even go and beat them as well when we had a chance as well. So Celtic need to go out and do their job. But I did enjoy, I seen a picture yesterday, and it was like the last 9 Rangers managers, and it was, what's the difference you can spot here? And it was obviously Russell Martin
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
wearing a shirt and tie, but there under it somebody says, Gio really should have learned how to do a Windsor knot. I'm like, what is going on here?
That's a good point about Brendan Rodgers not having beaten either of the last 2 or 3
Can it
managers.
be any failing manager?
So, which is why I'm not having any of this. Oh, Brendan has seen another one off. If anything, like, this is
Kept
probably
him in a job.
This is a unique circumstance where Brendan Rodgers has done absolutely nothing towards getting a Rangers manager sacked. In fact, Celtic gave him one of their more positive results of this disastrous period. So no, I don't think Celtic have had anything to do with this one. But that's it. It's over.
Is it? I think now.
Oh, and one final
Oh.
thing as well. Melly said something about not being given the chance to like get properly stuck in and have a good laugh. But that's because, in a weird way, I started to have sympathy with him because. Not that the whole thing was hilarious, but it became very much, they hated him that much. It became a kind of
Pointless us hating him.
it was the enemy of my enemy
Oh,
situation
yeah,
for me.
yeah.
Aye.
I think just the Rangers' job is now the good old fashioned. You don't hear this anymore, but it's the good old fashioned poison chalice. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Like they've tried everything. They've tried every different type of manager, and everyone's failed there. And it's happened almost inexplicably under about 5 different ownership regimes. They just cannot seem to get these managerial appointments right, but that doesn't mean they're always going to get it wrong. And I think every time Rangers sack the manager, it's an opportunity for Celtic to go, right, let's do a bit of planning here. Let's think about what if they do get the next one right. Where are our weaknesses and where are our gaps?
Celtic planning.
Yeah.
I know on that. Oh, well, there's the meeting, isn't there?
Oh, sure there is, yeah.
That's happening while we record. The fan action meeting with the board is happening, so we'll see what happens there, and no doubt we'll report on anything that comes from that. Midweek we'll have a podcast out on Patreon to cover any fallout from that. Patreon.com/20minutetims. If you want some extra content, check it out there. But most of all, thank you for listening and watching, and we will be back after the international break.
Yeah, we'll certainly be back after the international break. Yeah, it's a weekly podcast that I've been going for 10 years.
It's our job. See you later.